Good evening, everyone. I, CHR Nisha, on behalf of Professional Skill Enrichment Committee ICI, welcome all of the participants in today's webcast, The Professional Edge, Time Discipline, Ethical Conduct, and Smart Problem Solving Skills. I welcome today's resource person, CA Rakesh Singh, and all the participants present over here. To formally introduce Rakesh Kumar Singh, sir, he is a qualified chartered accountant with over 4 years of post qualification experience, currently working in corporate security and internal audit function in the industry. Along with his core audit and compliance expertise, he has built strong capacities in digital branding, content strategy, and audience engagement. Over time, he has developed a deep interest in intersection of branding, trust building, emerging digital platform, an area especially relevant for finance and accounting professionals looking to stand out in an increasing competitive landscape. With this brief introduction, I welcome you, sir, and now floor is all open for your deliberation. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for such a lovely introduction. At the outset, let me thank the Professional Skill Enrichment Committee of the ICI. The committee is sponsoring and organizing a lot of professional skills enrichment courses and webinars for the professionals. A huge kudos to them. Also, I want to thank CA Jayacharya sir, Chairman PSEC ICI, CA Abhay Chhajar sir, Vice Chairman PSEC ICI, Dr. Sambit Kumar Mishra sir, Secretary PSEC ICI, and today's technical support team member Ayaz, and of course, Charmi ma'am to you as well. So before beginning with the today's topic that is on professional edge, we'll cover a lot on this topic. I just want to briefly introduce myself. My name is Rakesh Singh. I'm a chartered accountant, DISA and CISA qualified. Also, I am an active member of IIA, the Institute of Internal Auditors, and ISACA. So before joining the corporate where I'm working in the corporate security and internal audit department, I was associated with the big five, Deloitte, BDO, and KPMG uh, in the consulting domain. So most of the topics or most of the examples that I'll, you know, share with you all today will be related to the work that I have been doing in the consulting. So mostly the internal audits and fraud investigation work. In my articleship, I also touched upon statutory audits, and so some of the cadences and some of the examples might be related to that time as well. So I'll start with sharing my screen, and we'll discuss a lot on today's topic for the webinar. Also, before we begin, I would like to make this webinar as much interactive as possible. I'll ask you all a lot of questions. Maybe I'll ask you to share your experiences as well related to the topics that we'll be discussing upon. I'll encourage you, all the participants, all the ladies and gentlemen that have joined today's webinar, to use the chat box as much as possible for them. So, the topic for today's webinar is the professional edge, and we'll integrate it with time discipline, ethical conduct, and smart problem solving skills. That is very much relevant and important for all the chartered accountants and CA students who have joined this webinar. So in this index or over the course of this webinar, we'll be talking about professional edge, then time discipline and how time discipline transforms efficiency into excellence. We'll cover both the topics, what do we mean by efficiency and what is excellence. Then we'll cover ethical conduct and how our ethical conduct builds a lasting trust, both with the stakeholders, our employers, or the clients. Then smart problem solving skills and how smart problem solving skills turns challenges into opportunities. And together, how above three, forms a basis for the core of a true professional edge, which gives a professional edge to us, to all the participants, over each other. So before moving on to today's topic, professional edge, I'll like to take out a moment and would like to ask you all, would like to know from you all, what do you mean by professional edge? if you can put it into the comment section or in the chat. And since there is a lag of around a minute between when you put it down in the chat and till the time it reaches us, so we'll wait for 1 minute before moving ahead if there is no answer. So moving ahead, when we talk about professional edge, so what do we mean by professional edge? So professional edge refers to the unique qualities, habits, and skills that sets a professional apart from average performers. So suppose there are two professionals. Let's name them Ajay and Sumit. So both are assigned the same task, but Ajay has the habit of taking a lead, delivering all the work, all the activities on time, asking more questions, being proactive. He has a habit of asking questions. He polishes his skills. He skills himself up, and he's relevant with all the changes. He's updated with all the changes. And then there is Sumit, who just performs his work, and that's it, and he's content with whatever work he's doing, whatever his manager has asked him to perform. He does that and he's just content. So who do you all think who has the professional edge over other? Of course it's Ajay, because of the unique capabilities that differentiates him from Sumit, right? Because he has the ability, the unique qualities like his habits, his skills of asking questions, which is setting him apart from his peers or competitors, right? So professional edge is something that gives you unique, that is unique qualities of yours that sets you apart from other peers. And when we talk about professional edge, so it is a competitive advantage. It always works in your favor. It acts as a competitive advantage in your career, whether it's related to trust that you command over people, and the respect that you command from people on the work that you perform, whether it's interpersonal skill when you are dealing with a client, with your manager, with your peers. So that is something that sets you apart as the professional edge. And it is just not knowing about the, let's say, accounting standards or audit procedures, because if someone is a CA, or I mean, if taking an example of an industry, let's say a consulting firm, where majority of the participants or majority of the consultants are qualified chartered accountants, so it is but obvious that they have been studying, and they are well versed with the accounting standard or audit procedures, but some of them have an extra edge over the others. And when we talk about that edge, that is professional edge, and it comes with the time management skills, with your ethics, the build up of your ethics, interpersonal skill, leadership skill. So all of these combined gives you or any person a professional edge. So it's not just only limited to your IQ, what you know about the topics or the dealings, but how you manage your time, how you uphold integrity in times where integrity is threatened, how you solve problems smartly. And all these qualities makes you reliable, efficient, adaptable, which clients and employers values most, because who does not like a problem solver, or who does not like a person who is very much ethical in his or her conduct. So that is professional edge. Having all these unique capabilities gives you an edge over other peers. Now in the professional edge, talking about the first topic is time discipline. So time discipline is actually the bridge between mediocrity and excellence. So we'll be talking a lot in detail on the topic time discipline itself. So when we talk about time discipline, it is not just completing the task within the given timeline. I mean, it is one of the attribute of time discipline. But so suppose there is a person who has been given a work to, let's say, do the control testing. And the period that has been given to him is for, let's say, 1 month, and he has to complete 20 controls within that month. If he's able to complete those 20 controls within the given timeline, without compromising on the quality of work that is performed, without losing the integrity, with due professional competence and care, and he is able to deliver that work within the committed timelines, that is called time discipline. And when you are able to pull a assignment off, given by your manager, or let's say client, any kind of work entrusted by client onto you within the committed timelines, it creates a kind of trust from the side of client as well, from your managers, from your peers, that they used to believe, and you make them believe that if this person has been given any task, he'll be able to pull it off, complete this particular task, let's say it can be anything, within the desired timeline, because you set a benchmark for them, because you completed the task within the deadline, without losing your integrity, with due professional competence and care. Because if we are able to do or perform a task within the set timeline, and our integrity is compromised, and we are not doing the task with due professional and care like we should do, because of the pressure of timeline, then that is not time discipline, and that is for sure not ethical, or it won't give a professional edge to us, because sooner or later, the client or manager are gonna find it out, because they will again be reviewing that thing, right? So that is there. And once we are able to pull that thing off within the committed timelines, we are making ourselves, and we are giving the comfort to our managers or client of being reliable, so that they can rely on us in the future. And when we talk about time discipline, so it enables us to manage the deadlines without stress. Because when we talk about time discipline, it also involves planning, that we'll be discussing in the coming slides. So if we are able to plan our work, all the work that we are going to do, let's say if we are testing a control, 20 controls, then what we need to do in order to complete those controls within a set time of, let's say, 1 month. So for that, we need to prioritize things. We need to send the idea timely. We need to start testing the controls that requires a lot of efforts, which is hard to test, in which we need to send further samples, for instance. So this is how we pull it off within the set timeline, right? Also, when we talk about time disciplines, and when we are working in the consulting engagements, or let's say if we are running our own firm, or even in the industry, so we are not only assigned with a single task, let's say of control testing. So we are assigned multiple tasks, maybe multiple assignments. So suppose a person who is working in a consulting industry, and it is not only one client that he's working upon, or auditing only one client. uh, I mean, at a junior level, when he or she is an associate, it might be possible that he or she is working on a single assignment only. But as we grow onto the ladder, as we climb the corporate ladder, so with every step, with every promotion, there comes multiple assignments that we need to manage. Because when we are able to manage all those assignments without failing, then we are ready to, ready to take more responsibilities and fulfill our job description. So how are we going to manage this time discipline? How are we going to prioritize high value tasks? So this is all these things we'll be covering in the coming slides. Before going on, how to ensure that we are able to manage the time, and how we are able to do justice to the time discipline, let's understand what are the cost of poor time discipline. What can go wrong if we are not able to fulfill our commitments within time. So first thing first, it will be a missed deadline. So the kind of environment that we are working upon, let's say if we have to issue a report timely, or we have to file a returns within the time, if we miss those timelines, first thing, it damages our credibility as a person. So that means we are not able to pull it off. First thing. Second is we lose our client trust. Third thing can be there that it could come with a penalty. So suppose if we are not able to file the return timely, then there is penalty for delay filing of return. So that is there. Second is increased stress and burnout. So suppose again I'll take that example of testing of 20 controls within 1 month. So if we are not able to prioritize which controls we need to test first, which controls we need to send more samples, for which controls we need to nug the stakeholders or process owners to give us the data. If we are if we require more data, we have to send the FDR as well for the data request. So until and unless we are able to manage or prioritize those things, we won't be able to fulfill the time discipline factor, and it will eventually lead to stress and burnout, because there will be a lot many things on our plates and we'll be unable to manage that. So that causes stress and burnout. And then what will happen is there will be constant firefighting. So एक के बाद एक project फट रहा है. There are instances like that. There are multiple escalations you will face. So that is the cost of unable to manage within the set timeline, and that will eventually lead to mental fatigue, and productivity will also get affected. Third thing is financial loss, as we discussed above. So maybe late submission can result in penalties if we are talking about, let's say, income tax. So if we are unable to file the returns on time, then there is penalty for that, for the late filing. Poor quality of work. So whenever we fail to prioritize the things or plan the audits, it leads to the poor quality of work, because we'll rush things, right? So in order to complete those things, let's say 20 controls within the timelines, we'll submit the controls without adequately reviewing the work paper, without adequately testing the work papers. Will Then our integrity will be hampered. We won't be testing the controls with, let's say, professional due care or proper due diligence. We won't be able to do that, because we are under that pressure that we have to complete those 20 controls within the time. So that will relate to the poor quality of work. And whenever a person performs or gives a poor quality of work, it ultimately damages his or her reputation. So next time, whenever a work will be delegated, people won't trust you to do that job, because the quality was impacted. Following that, there is lost opportunities. So next time, if there is, let's say, if someone has to be assigned a control testing opportunity or new work has to be assigned, we won't be on that list. We'll be out of that list, because the quality was affected last time when we were delegated that task. So that is there. And when it is there, when the opportunity are lost, that means we have less room for strategic growth. We have less room for expansion. We have less room for growth or climbing the corporate ladder. And ultimately, what it leads to is strained relationship. The relationship between you and your manager will get worse. You and your client will get worse, will deteriorate, and people will lose confidence in your abilities, because you were not able to prioritize things. You were not able to complete the task assigned to you in a timely fashion. So all of these are the cost of poor time discipline. Now, what are the common time management challenges that we face while, let's say, performing a task? And why we are not able to, let's say, perform a task within a set time limit? So, first thing that comes to my mind, and what all of us must have faced at a certain point of time. First one is the procrastination habit. So, we have an habit of procrastination, a habit of delaying things until and unless it is upon our head that we have to do. And then there comes the firefighting technique, that and then there is escalation and project ka fatna, everything is there. And why it happens? Because we delay the important task in favor of easier or less critical one. So let's say there are 20 controls, and out of those 20 controls, 5 controls were very easy to perform. So instead of doing the 5 hard controls first, we chose to do the opposite. We chose to complete, let's say, 5 controls that were easier to finish first, just to get a satisfaction or relief that yes, out of 20 I have done 5 controls, 25% of the work has been completed. So that is there. Second thing, and the impact of procrastination, as we discussed right now, that leads to firefighting techniques, poor quality of work, because then we have to rush things and complete all those 15 controls. Second thing is poor prioritization. So out of, let's say, 20 controls, uh, what ideally we should have done is we should have prioritized those controls that are difficult to do, for which we need to, let's say, send an additional further data request, or we need to select more samples for those controls. So we should have prioritized basis the set prioritization benchmark that we have, and then we could have, completed those tasks. Maybe then we'll be able to achieve those tasks within the set time limit. What is poor prioritization? Failing to distinguish between urgent and important tasks. And what is its impact? So the impact is that we spend more time on low value activities while critical tasks pile up. Now, another common time management challenge is multitasking. So, suppose we have to manage two assignments, let's say, at a time. So, apart from control testing, there is UAT testing, user acceptance testing, for a new audit software that is being implemented, let's say, in our organization. So, we have been assigned with two tasks. First one is control testing, and then there is UAT testing, user acceptance testing. So, we have to prioritize which one we should do first, or is it possible for us to work on both the tasks simultaneously? Because when we do multitasking, many times what happens is we are not able to pull any of the task off, right? So both those tasks fail because we are not able to do the multitasking activity. And what happens when we do multitasking? It actually reduces our focus and increases mistake. So usually what happens is, so if we are doing a control testing and then we have to do the user acceptance testing, both require different skill set, both require different mindset. So suppose I am in a mindset of doing the control testing, and then I do jump from control testing to user acceptance testing, and then there will be mix and match, there will be an errors. So suppose the test steps that I need to perform on control testing, I am performing on the user acceptance testing, or I am rewriting the work paper, or vice versa. Anything can happen. And when we do multitasking in a situation where our brain is split into two, and both the tasks are way different from each other, then both the tasks suffer. That is the end result of multitasking, if we are not good at doing multitasking. Another thing is lack of planning. So as I mentioned in the beginning of our webinar, that why we are not able to pull something off within the set timeline, because of lack of planning. So again, if we are given a task, we start that task before any guideline, before any clear goal or destination, without planning anything, uh, without prioritizing anything, and that leads to missed timelines. Now comes the next one is distraction. So distraction while we are doing anything, let's say we are focusing deep on control testing part, and then there are constant Teams messages, let's say, there are constant email notification, then there is some feeling of boredom, and then we hop onto our mobile phone or smartphone, and we are scrolling. Next we know we are on the LinkedIn or Instagram or WhatsApp. So those are distractions that are also that also lead us not to complete the task within the set timelines, right? Because it breaks our concentration, and break concentration leads to lower productivity. Overcommitment, this is one of the most common problem that I have seen across whatever time I have worked in consulting or articleship or in the industry. So what people usually do is they overcommit and under deliver. So this is the most common phenomena that I have noticed: overcommitment and under deliver. But what we should be doing is ideally the opposite: always undercommit and over deliver. Because first thing, it boosts your morale, and second thing, the manager or the client looks it takes it into a good way. What we usually do is, if someone asks us whether you'll be able to perform it, we say yes, because we have a habit of saying yes. uh, how we are technically wired is that every time someone asks, we say yes, 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 instead of saying no. So what we have to do is we have to see our bandwidth, what is our availability. First thing is that. Second thing, do we have the required skill set? Do we have it with us or not? Will we be able to pull this task off? I mean, if I am accepting any assignment or any task, we have to introspect and we have to see our availability. Do I have the time required to fulfill or deliver that task? If yes, fine, we can say yes. If not, then we can say no, or we can discuss that maybe I'll be able. Right now I don't have any bandwidth with me, but maybe I'll be able to do it, let's say, after I finish this task, if it is not urgent, right? So this is how we should be doing. So always undercommit and over deliver, because it also puts you in a good light. And what happens is, when you overcommit and you are unable to fulfill what you committed, so that leads to a negative response. Again, there will be a clash, or there will be some kind of knockoff between you, your manager, client, and you. It could be anything, right? Because what you committed, you were not able to fulfill. So that is there. Uh, One of the important things or time management challenges that I have also seen is failure to delegate. So you'll notice, as you go up in the ranks, there you have to delegate, non-important things, or things that you could take off. You have to identify things that you could take off from your plate, and that you can assign to your juniors or peers if they are ready to take on those tasks. Because when we try to do everything on our own, I mean, because we have the habit of attaining perfection in everything we do. First thing is that it stems out of that. And second thing is lack of trust, because we don't trust our peers or juniors that they will be able to manage or do this task as perfectly as we can. But as you grow, as you climb the corporate ladder, and as you grow in your ranks, the delegation activity is as much required for your growth, because we can't do everything on our own, and we won't be able to pull everything on our own. And that's when we require to build a team. We need to train them, polish them, nourish them, and everything, right? Because if you are not able to delegate the task, it wastes your time. So low fruits or low value work takes up most of your time. So there is an um, interesting rule that fits everywhere, that is Pareto analysis. So Pareto's 80-20. So 80% of the tasks that you do fetches 20% of the value, and while 20% of the tasks that you do gives 80% of the value. So we need to work according to the Pareto principle. We need to identify the 20% of the work that we are doing that gives 80% of the result, and we need to work on the 80% of the time that is taken up by the non-productive work, let's say checking off emails every time, replying on the team's messages every time. So things like that. And we need to restrict our time, we need to own our time in order to manage the time. Now, talking about the key principles of the time management, first thing, needless to say, is prioritization. So we need to prioritize which task we need to do first. And for prioritization, there is an important technique given by the Eisenhower. Eisenhower was also the US president, a military person. So he was, I guess, if I'm not wrong, 34th president of the United States. And he has given a fantastic phenomena on that is called Eisenhower metrics, in order to prioritize, how we can use Eisenhower metrics for prioritization. So he has classified urgent versus important. So urgent and non-urgent, and important versus non-important tasks, that we'll be talking in the next slide. For instance, if we have to prioritize, let's say, between preparing a financial report for a key client versus, let's say, non-critical emails that takes up our most of the time. So what we can do is, we can first prioritize, because the obvious answer is preparing financial report for a key client. That should be our priority. So we need to benchmark our work that we are going to perform on the Eisenhower metrics, and it will be helpful. So Eisenhower metrics, as we discussed, is a time management tool that helps people prioritize tasks based on urgency and importance. So these are the two quadrants of Eisenhower metrics. So if you'll say on the y-axis, let's assume there is urgency, and on the x-axis there is importance, and basis that it divides the task into four quadrants. So urgent and important should be the task that we must be doing first thing first, right? So this is our utmost priority. These are the tasks that should need and that we should give attention to, and these are the tasks that have significant consequences if they are delayed. So that is there. On the second quadrant, there are tasks that are not urgent but important. For those tasks, what we can do is we can plan and schedule. So let's say we have to give an audit report 1 week for now 1 week from now. So this task will fall on quadrant 2. So if I'll give you my example, for instance, I have to take this webinar today. So on the Eisenhower matrix, yesterday when I was preparing the slides, so this was urgent and important, and I did it immediately. So I prepared the slide so that I'll be able to give or present on the webinar. So that is there. Second on the quadrant 2 for me is the UAT of an audit tool that we are onboarding, that is due for next week. So that is not urgent, but it is important because UAT need to be performed so that that tool can be implemented. And so for that, what I need to do is I can prioritize it for next week. Now on the quadrant 3, there are things that are urgent but not important. And so when we talk about things that are urgent but not important is mainly the emails or follow up with the clients on the data request that we send, for let's say if there is a timeline of let's say 30 days available for them, or let's say there is a feedback on the audit. So this is something that we can delegate to our juniors as well. Now comes the last on the quadrant is non-urgent and non-important, and those are the things that we should eliminate or minimize. And these are tasks. When we talk about tasks that are not urgent and not important, we are talking about tasks that are neither adding value to our work, or they don't require any immediate action as well or immediate attention as well. Now, talking about the key principles of time management. So, the utmost priority is for the planning, because planning is, when we talk about planning, it is setting the objective and deciding how to achieve them efficiently. So that is the core of the time management. And how we can do the time management, uh, I remember when I was interning with one of the private banks, so there used to be a person who has set out his calendar in a timely fashion way. So everything was put on his calendar, and he was one of the best performing RMs, so relationship manager of that particular bank branch and of that particular segment. He has assigned, or he has built up his calendar so perfectly that everything was there in his calendar, and he was the first person that I have seen utilizing his calendar very well. No fighting, nothing. And he was able to meet his targets well within the time, because he used to plan everything. He used to put everything on the calendar. And I mean, I'll urge you all, I also do this on my day-to-day life, and for the long run as well, I try to put everything on my calendar, on my vision board, what I want to achieve, what is important for me, what are the things that I need to do for let's say this week, then today, this week, then this month, in the quarter, half year. And that's how all of the planning is done. So whenever let's say a company is there who is giving a vision board that that company will be doubling his top line, let's say in the coming 5 years. So that is a broad plan of the 5 years. Then when we do the planning, we broke the long term objective, long term goal into achievable targets. So let's say a 5 year plan, it will be broken into a year, 6 months, quarterly, monthly, and weekly plan, right? So this is how we should do. And when we talk about setting the monthly plans, or when we talk about the planning process, here are the main techniques that we talk about. So first thing is setting objectives. Why setting objective is necessary? Because we need to define clear and measurable goals. So whatever target we need to achieve, it should be clear. So for instance, my target could be complete order to cash and P2P audits in Q1. So that is a specific objective. And As per that objective, I'll be able to do the resource allocation, plan the nature, timing, and extent of that audit activity. So because I set that objective. Second thing, first, once we have the objective in place, then comes the scheduling. So when we talk about scheduling, it is allocating time for tasks in a structured manner. For instance, if I talk about order to cash audit, I'll create a timeline for audit field work. So order to cash audit will further be divided into field work, then review, and then reporting. So that, let's say my goal is to do that audit in 1 month. So I'll be able to, so let's say in a month, 2 weeks I allocate to audit field work, 1 week for review, and 1 week for reporting. So that is how I do the scheduling in the planning process, right? Then there comes the budgeting. So many a times what happens is, if we take an example of an internal audit activity, many a times we also do co-source audit, right? So we are not able to perform in-house activity, in-house audit, because of the limited manpower. So we, because we have done the planning initially, we understand that we'll need expertise from outside or from the consulting firms, and so we do the budgeting as well, because we need to get the approvals as well. So planning helps us in budgeting as well, because we are beforehand informed that we'll be requiring extra budget for the consultants that we are going to hire from outside. Now fourth is policy and procedure development. So let's say, uh, when we are doing the uh, planning of order to cash audit, how we are going to perform order to cash audit. So there can be instances, or there can be ideas that came to our mind during the audit, which we won't be able to take into consideration in this audit, or maybe it is related to some other field. Let's say it is related to production, some other areas. Let's say it can be related to production or inventory. So we can create something like parking lot, where we could park our ideas, so that next time if anyone is planning for, let's say, inventory audit or order to cash audit for next year or next quarter, he's able to review it from the parking lot, so that those considerations are also taken into account. Now the last one on the list is prioritization. So again, as I said, focusing on a high value task first. So again, I'll take the example of the control testing that we were discussing initially. So let's say there are 5 controls out of 20 that requires more attention, that requires more time for testing. And as per the prioritization technique, as per the Eisenhower matrix, those tasks should be completed first. Now the second key principle of the time management is focus and elimination of distraction. So why focus is important? Because maintaining concentration is important to minimize interruptions and distractions. And below are the main strategies that would help us to improve focus. First one is the Pomodoro technique. We all must have heard of this technique of the Pomodoro, right? So it is a technique where we work in a focused intervals, usually of 25 minutes. I remember I used to follow this technique when I was studying for my exams. So after every 25 minutes, I took a short break of 5 minutes. So it is not necessary to have this focused interval of 25 minutes. We could increase or decrease it depending upon our appetite. But the ideal is 25 minutes followed by a 5-minute break. And how we can do it, in our case, as a practicing chartered accountants or someone who is working in an industry, that let's say if we are preparing an auditing work paper, so we are preparing an audit work paper for a particular control, we can set a timer for 25 minutes to complete testing of a control. I know we won't be able to do the testing within 25 minutes, but let's say if we are able, we set a timer for an hour or 2 hours, and after we are able to complete that task, we took a small break, or we can take breaks in between as well, just to have full concentration on those testing activity. So that is Pomodoro technique for you. Second, what we can do is, let's say we are working on our laptops, and then we have the constant notification, constant bugging from our peers on Teams, or we are getting notification of the emails. What we can do is, there is a beautiful technique in Outlook where you could set some time as focusing time. You won't be You won't be listening to any of the pings on Teams if someone is pinging you, or of the emails. Or what you can do is you can put your status on Teams as on a presenting mode or do not disturb mode. That's why you won't be getting notified of any of the Teams messages or email until and unless you go to Teams and check all those messages. So that is one of the technique of focus and elimination of distraction. Now, the third one comes to time audits. So I remember when first time I did the planning for an audit. So I sat with my manager and I discussed how he used to do the audit planning. So he said that how he used in consulting we have had the budget, right? So we put on the timesheet that this is the time that you can um, you have this much of time that you can allocate or you can spend on a particular audit, right? So that is there. But once you come to industry, the cost thing is not there. But again, in order to manage or identify your efficiency, how efficient you are in performing a test or performing an audit, there needs to be a benchmark, and that is again time. So while taking into consideration how much time a particular person needs for an audit, first thing is that we can take an idea from the previous audits or previous work programs. First thing is there. Second is, if you are giving a new person an opportunity to do the testing activity, we need to set a buffer time as well for him or her, right? Because it's obvious that if some person is doing testing for the first time, he or she will require obviously more time to test, right? So that is there. Many a times I have seen people don't put that contingency or buffer time while doing the audit planning, and that cost जब वो project फटता है, that is many a times that is the relevant factor which was not there, not taken into consideration. Another thing is when you analyze your day-to-day activity, you take you track time and you take control of your time, and you discover how we waste. Let's say I wasted 2 hours daily on unnecessary meetings. So while doing order to cash audit, for instance, we perform a process walkthrough with the process owners. And this is not necessary that we need to do the process walkthrough every time, until and unless there is a change in the process. And for if there is a change in the process, there is a control description that needs to be updated, and we get notified because we get notified from the control owner anytime there is a change in the control description. So what we can do is to avoid wasting this 2 hour every time we have an order to cash audit. We could document the walkthrough into a narrative, and we could store it into our work papers. And next time when someone is auditing, let's say order to cash, or if I am only the person who is auditing the order to cash process, I have that narrative handy with me, and I don't need the process walkthrough until and unless there while doing the, let's say, control testing, I got to know that there is some change in the process. So that could be performed. Now, next one is the batch processing. So batch processing, as you all know, in batch processing, what we do is we group similar tasks together to save time. So let's say replying to an email in a dedicated slot. So instead of replying every mail on come and serve basis, we could allocate some time for, let's say, email replying to emails or follow up emails. So how I used to do in my consulting days, that if I'm working on, let's say, 3 or 4 assignments together, the first thing in the morning that I used to do before starting with my day, I used to send the reminder emails on the data request that I have not received from the process owners. So that was first thing in the morning that I used to do, and then to review them in after the lunch, that if I have received some additional data from them. So this is how you can do. Or what we can do is, instead of sending an PBC is provided by client or the IDR. So instead of sending data request for, let's say, every control one by one, what we can do is we could prepare all the data requests together, and we could send to all the process owners or the relevant process owners in one go if we are using some kind of audit tool. Now, of course, there is delegation that needs to be done. So tasks that don't require much of your input, or that could be easily delegated, should be delegated to, let's say, juniors or assistants, so that we could free up our time for focusing on the high value activities. So let's say control testing activity could be assigned to a junior of ours. He could do the control testing, because anyhow we'll be doing the review of their work paper. We could free up more time on the data analytics part, so that we'll be able to pick up samples more carefully, and so that we'll be able to perform, let's say, risk based audit. Now, why time discipline matters, why it is important for us professionals, and why we are talking today on the time discipline. So, first thing, as we understood in the initial slides, that time discipline is ability to manage and utilize or take control over our time, so that we are able to achieve our goals without any stress or feeling burnout, something like that, right? And time discipline again is not only a productivity tool, it is also a career enabler, because as we discussed in previous slides, once you are able to have make that reputation or make that name of yourself, that this he or she is the person to go to if you want to assign any activity and we need it in a timely fashion within the set deadline. So he or she is the person go to. He or she is our go to person, right? That we can assign him or her such task, and he'll be able to perform this task within the set timeline. And it is again a career enabler. So it puts you in a good light. Now, if you are planning the task perfectly, then it will, of course, improve your accuracy and quality, because you'll be able to prioritize tasks that should be done first, followed by next, and so on, right? Because when you focus on when you allocate your time to focus on things that are important, that limits the chance of causing any errors, because there is no time to rush, because we have sufficient time on hand. We don't need to rush anything because we did the planning right. What also helps in the time discipline is when we are able to time, or we when we are able to take control of our time, it reduces stress and burnout, because we did the planning right. It also enhances our professional reputation, because we have a name that anything needs to be done within the deadline, he is our go to person, he will be able to pull it off. And that builds the trust, whether it is with your manager or with the client or anybody else. Again, next comes on the list is the enable strategic thinking. So when you are able to manage your time perfectly, it frees up many of your time for yourself to think upon. Let's say if you want to grow in your career, if you want to fetch more clients, if you need to allocate some time or save some time for client meetings or developing a new skill, it won't come until and unless we take control of our time, how we are spending. Let's say if I'm working 9 hours a day, how I am spending my 9 hours a day. So if until and unless we take track of our time, we control our time, we won't be able to free time as well. So 9 घंटे अगर मैं सुबह आया और अभी कितना हो रहा है, इट्स लाइक 5:50, मतलब अराउंड 6. सो इफ 6 बज गए, सो 9 से 6, एंड लेट्स से मैंने आज पूरे दिन में कुछ प्रोडक्टिव नहीं करा, दैट इज वन थिंग. बट इफ आई एम अनेबल टू फिगर इट आउट कि मेरा ये जो टाइम है, मतलब ये जो 9 घंटे का टाइम है वो किधर गया, so how would I be able to improve myself, and how would I be able to gain that professional edge until and unless I took control of my time? So that's why it is important. And when we free time for ourselves, those time फिर we think of upskilling ourselves, getting updated. लेट्स से मैंने न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ा उस फ्री टाइम में, मैंने एसक्यूएल या फिर पाइथन के क्लासेस करे जस्ट टू हेल्प मी विद द डेटा एनालिटिक्स, और मैंने कोई और सर्टिफिकेशन लिया दैट विल हेल्प मी ग्रो इन माय करियर और फेच मोर क्लाइंट्स. इट कुड बी देयर, या मैंने उस फ्री अप टाइम में क्लाइंट विजिट किया. until and unless I take control of my time, how would I able to do it? मतलब 9 से 6 सारे बंदे काम कर रहे हैं. Who will grow in his or her career, who will be able to climb on the corporate ladder or fetch more clients or service the existing client in a more better or efficient way, is all decided when we take control of our time. And that's why time discipline matters. ऑल्सो इट क्रिएट्स वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस, क्योंकि फायर फाइटिंग जैसा कुछ रहेगा नहीं। मतलब आप, सो सपोज मेरे को अगेन वो 20 कंट्रोल्स मिले थे एंड आई एम नॉट एबल टू फुल डू दैट कंट्रोल टेस्टिंग विद इन द सेट टाइम ऑफ 1 मंथ। तो फिर लास्ट में क्या करूंगा, मेरे पास एक वीकेंड बचा हुआ है और उसमें मुझे खत्म करना है, तो फिर मैं दिन रात लगाकर उसे खत्म करूंगा। एंड फिर वहां पे वर्क लाइफ बैलेंस नहीं रहता, राइट? क्योंकि पहले तो सिर्फ लाइफ लाइफ था, उसके बाद वर्क वर्क वर्क, सो वेयर्स द बैलेंस? So that's why we need time discipline is important for us as professionals. Now, when we talk about efficiency, so as you all know, efficiency is doing things quickly. So there are two metrics of two benchmarks of, or we can say benchmark or metrics. So first one is efficiency and second one is excellent. So efficiency is doing things quickly and excellence is doing right things at the right time. So suppose you performed a testing activity quickly, right? So 8 घंटे का काम 2-3 घंटे में कर दिया, but that sample that we took was compromised, that was not performed with due diligence or due professional care, क्योंकि मुझे वो काम करना था, it was just check in the box. But when we talk about excellence, we do the things right. So मैंने वो control testing करा. So for instance, I'll give you an example again. तो we used to, जब मैं इन्वेंट्री ऑडिट कर रहा था, we used to, there is a this control, let's say I I take an example of control, let's say मैं उसको बोलता हूँ control 125, where we have to check that जो shipping हो रही है, so suppose we purchased a raw material or semi finished goods from one of our vendors, and we have to see कि जब वो quarter cross कर रहा है, so suppose एक मटेरियल है, let's say सीमेंट, जो मेरे प्रीमाइसेस में XYZ कंपनी में 8 तारीख को पहुंचा, 8 नवंबर, एंड जो क्वार्टर क्लोज होता है वो फॉर इंस्टेंस 11 को क्लोज होता है। ओरेकल में उस ट्रांजैक्शन की एंट्री हुई, या एसएपी में जो भी ईआरपी हम यूज करते हैं उसमें उसकी एंट्री हुई 13 तारीख को। सो आइडियली व्हाट शुड हैपन कि वो जो 8 तारीख वाला था, क्योंकि वो पहले, मतलब वो लेट से Q3 में ही हमारे पास आ गया था, बट अगेन जो उसके रिकॉर्डिंग हुई दैट वाज इन Q4, बिकॉज QC एंड एवरीथिंग में टाइम लग जाता है। सो आइडियली जब अपन अक्रूवल कंसेप्ट को फॉलो करते हैं तो इट शुड बी रिकॉर्डेड इन Q3, नॉट इन Q4। सो हुआ क्या कि देयर वाज दिस, एक प्लांट था जिसके एग्जांपल्स को लोग अवॉइड करते थे बिकॉज उनका प्रोसेस ओनर नहीं पता था। अब हुआ क्या कि वो उसको लगातार ही इग्नोर करने लगे। सो आई आस्क्ड कि क्यों करते हो इग्नोर इसको? तो उन्होंने कहा कि भाई इसका हमारे को प्रोसेस ओनर नहीं पता है। तो मैंने कहा स्ट्रेंज, नहीं पता है, ठीक है, पर डिड वी ट्राई टू फाइंड आउट? तो उन्होंने कहा कि भाई देखते को अगर लगता है, तुम्हें लगता है कि तुम कर सकते हो, तो प्लीज गो, फील फ्री टू डू इट, क्योंकि अपने को 25 सैंपल्स टेस्ट करने हैं और टाइम है नहीं हमारे पास उतना, क्यों, क्योंकि एक काम भी करना है खत्म इन अ टाइमली फैशन। तो बट आई चोज दैट पर्टिकुलर नेग्लेक्टेड एरिया, उसके 5 सैंपल उठा लिया मैंने, प्रोसेस ओनर ढूंढा, आई आस्क्ड जो दूसरे प्लांट के प्रोसेस ओनर थे उनसे पूछा, 5-6 बंदे थे लूप में, उनको फिर मैंने ईमेल करा, फिर उनसे पूछा, तो अल्टीमेटली वी फिगर्ड इट आउट कि कौन है उसके लिए रिस्पॉन्सिबल, एंड दैट वाज, तो उसके लिए एक अलग ही मॉडल फॉलो हो रहा था जो नॉर्मल इन्वेंट्री के लिए नहीं फॉलो हो रहा था। एंड देन दैट केम एज एन ऑब्जर्वेशन, क्योंकि उसको वो रिकॉर्ड नहीं कर रहे थे, सो अक्रूवल प्रिंसिपल जो था वो उस पर वो फॉलो ही नहीं कर रहे थे, बिकॉज एंड व्हेन वी आस्क्ड द प्रोसेस ओनर शी टोल्ड मी दैट वी वर नेवर इन्फॉर्म्ड ऑफ दिस कंट्रोल और वी हैव टू डू दिस activity in a certain way. So that is how you create a name for yourself, or this is how you do um, the work in an excellent fashion, because काम तो सब कर रहे हैं, what gives you a professional edge? You see things that are ignored by others. So अगर सब काम खत्म करने के लिए कर रहे हैं and you have that thing, that integrity, or let's say an eye for a detail, then that gives you a professional edge over your peers or other persons, right? So that is there. And when you follow the time discipline, that elevates you from a task executor, so someone who just finishes his or her task, to a trusted advisor, that if he or she performs this task, then it will have been done in a timely fashion and in a good way, or we don't need to test any more samples अगर इस बंदे ने टेस्ट कर रखा already, because you build a name for yourself, and this is how you do it, and this is how a person gets a professional edge. Now, coming to the second part, that is ethical conduct and how ethical conduct builds lasting trust. So, needless to say, मतलब हम लोगों को काफी ज्यादा पढ़ाया गया अपने सीए फाइनल के करिकुलम में भी on the ethics, right? There was an entire chapter on ethics. And if you see why ethics is important for us as a chartered accountants, uh, so there is this section as well, 141, 141 subsection 3, that is for the appointment of auditor. So उसमें भी 141 3 A B C D में भी जो क्लास criteria है that are there to you know, so that the chartered accountants don't have so that the chartered accountants have that independence, integrity, to ensure all those things. There is that section कि chartered accountant उन companies की audit नहीं कर सकते हैं जो हमारे criteria है और जो parameters given है, right? Because uh, ethics is the one of the founding stones of our profession. And apart, what we have studied so far in ethics, first one is integrity, that we should all act with honesty and fairness in all our professional dealings. So if there is anything that comes to our notice or any kind of observation that has to be in actual finding, that should be there without any manipulation. Just because some of the process owner, we have a good rapport with some of the process owner, it's not like we should remove that point from our observation. I remember when I was in KPMG, we were auditing this XYZ company, and there was this financial controller with whom I had a great rapport. So, and there was an observation that was pertaining to his area, his domain, for which he was the action owner or he was the responsible person. And I remember when I was having discussion with him, he was under the belief that I won't put it into the report just because we have a kind of rapport. But me being an person with integrity, I put that in report. And when we were discussing it, I said to him that whatever relationship that we are having, the kind of connection that we are having, that is separate. So professional and personal are separate, right? I have to act in a manner that is in a manner that shows integrity in the work that I do. And I did that. So many times we face certain blockades when we have a kind of connection with the process owner. If we are meeting some process owner, let's say repeatedly, there was a long standing client when I was in articleship, and I was there for a PV or PV कर रहा था उसमें there was a product that was expired and he asked me to write it, struck it off from the report. मैं उस time article था तो उन्होंने कहा, and he took care of me very well. So Andhra Pradesh से, let's say I was traveling to Kerala, he took care of all my convenience and everything, and he ensured that I reached there safely and sound, everything, right? So he thought he could ask me a favor. I mean, he could, but this is not something that I would give him a favor for, because integrity is something that should bleed from us. So, and why I am sharing this, because I know most of us encounter this thing day in day out because of the work that we are doing, and it is very important for us to work in an that integrity should be reflected in our work, the work that we do. So that is something, and that's why ethics matter to us CAs. Now, second is professional skepticism. So again, we always should ask why. Just because it is there doesn't mean it is right. Always have a questioning mind that what is there. Because, so let's say if there is an assumption for a provision of 3.5 crore and it is built up every year it is there. So we shouldn't ignore that just because it is being provided for every year for 3.5 crores. We should ask the underlying that what is this provision being built up for? Are we having let's say enough supporting for that, or any supporting basis which we are building this provision, right? So always validate unusual transactions, instead of, if the client is saying that it is there, why it is there, we have to question that. So that builds ethics, because that is our professional skepticism. Second is independence, as we talked about the section 141 subsection 3 ABCD that is applicable to us. I mean 141 subsection 3, all of it is applicable for us, but that four subpoints that we talked about, that is there to ensure that we are independent. So until and unless we are independent, we'll be influenced. So we won't be acting in a due professional care manner, right? So there, if there is no independence, if there is no objectivity, we won't be able to avoid conflicts, because there will always be conflict of interest, right? So suppose we have a financial stake in a company, we won't be able to audit it like we will be auditing a company where we don't have any financial stake, because we know that if we are auditing that company, it is ultimately going to harm us or benefit us, because there is some financial motive that we have. Fourth is transparency. So always communicate clearly and disclose relevant information. Needless to say, so suppose if you are not putting something on the report just because client is accepting that risk, client is mitigating that risk, or that is not there because you discuss it with the process owner that he is having some kind of control, and that's why that is not there. So I have seen what people do is, uh, at a point that they are not putting there in the report, then they have the habit that they go to the process owners or different stat auditors, or let's say some other process owners, and they are saying कि मैंने ये report में नहीं लिखा पर ये होना चाहिए था. If it's not there in the report, it is not to be talked about, because I mean, if it can be that the client's appetite is that big that he will be able to cater to that risk, that is fine. That is the ethical conduct that we should have, and that builds lasting trust. Abhi aap socho, you're not putting that on the report, you discussed everything with the HOD, and everything went well, right? So there were observations that was there, which HOD wanted us to remove, but we didn't because of the risk that was there, because of the impact that risk and that observation had, and the company's risk appetite was not as big as the risk that he was exposed to. But again, there are those controls जिसमें risk बहुत ही छोटा है and company का risk appetite is big, and that could be surmised into it. तो हमने वो हटा दिया. अभी मैंने रिपोर्ट में मान लो 3 ऑब्जर्वेशंस पब्लिश किए, एक जिसमें रिस्क एपिटीट ऐसा था कंपनी का दैट उसका रिस्क एपिटीट इतना था कि वो उस रिस्क को मिटिगेट ही कर देता, मतलब उसमें मिटिगेट नहीं करना था उसको, एनी काइंड ऑफ रिकमेंडेशन वुडंट वर्क. सो ही वाज रेडी टू केटर टू दैट रिस्क, और मैंने उसको राइटली रिपोर्ट में नहीं रखा. पर अभी मैं पीठ पीछे जाऊं और फिर एचओडी के स्टाफ को बोलूं दैट इट शुड हैव बीन देयर ऑन द रिपोर्ट एंड इट इज नॉट देयर बिकॉज ये वो करके कि मैं कोई एहसान करा. सो इट वोंट पुट यू इन अ गुड लाइट, एंड इट वोंट फॉर श्योर बिल्ड ट्रस्ट, बिकॉज आप रिपोर्ट में कुछ और कह रहे हो और ऐसे कुछ और कह रहे हो. So there should be transparency in and disclose every relevant information. Now confidentiality, it is one of the must things to have. So whatever is wrong or whatever right is there with your client, it should be between your client and you. We need not, needless to say, we're discussing with, let's say, another third party or anyone's. So never share any financial data or any kind of data of your client with anyone. So, and again, there is this DPDR that has DPDR 2023 that has been released recently by DOT, right, or by the by the government on the data protection, and it is going to impact us, the large consulting firms as well, and to the practicing firms as well, the data protection right. So we have the onus to protect the sensitive data of our clients at all times. So ethics is not only doing the right thing, it is doing the right thing when no one is watching. When everyone is watching, we'll always do the right thing. But what we are doing when no one is watching, so that is ethics. Now, why ethics matter in our profession? So first one is that we are trusted advisors. I know I have had the clients where uh, I have had everything of them, their bank account number, their passwords even. I mean, if we ask for the OTP, they'll give the OTP. It is because they trust us on to that extent that we have their login ID and password with us. Because of the, because of uh, the position or the trust that we command as a chartered accountant, and the reputation that ICI has built with the clients, regulators, or the public. Any kind of financial statements that we certify for a listed entity, and people invest, the investors invest in that company because we have certified that financial statement. So that is the trust that we have been entrusted with, and it is for us to fulfill that trust, and that is a very heavy responsibility. and that decision not only impact businesses but it impacts investor and the overall economy as well, because trust is the foundation of long term relationship, whether it's professional or personal. Now second is public interest responsibility. So our work goes beyond serving clients. So if we are certifying a, let's say, a listed company or working on some government tender, it is also safeguarding. So if we are working in an independent manner with integrity and due professional care, it is also safeguarding the professional interest. Now, the ethical behavior that we have, it ensures transparency and fairness in financial system. We can relate it with the certifying the financial statements of a listed company. And we should always uphold integrity uh, of our profession, of the ICI. Now, why ethics matter in our profession? So, what could go wrong if we are not ethical in our behavior? So, one ethical lapse can end a career. I mean, the license can be suspended, the COP, or in the worst case scenario, names could be struck off from the register of members from the ICI, right? It could lead into a disciplinary action. It could destroy our professional reputation. It could even lead to legal consequences. And needless to say, prevention is always better than damage control. So that's why it is very much important for us to work in an ethical manner. And acting ethically also protects our personal and professional brand. So ethics is not just complying with the ICI's ethics or because it is mandated by ICI. So uh, complying with ethics ensure that our career is safeguarded, our reputation, which is one of the most valuable assets, you can say an intangible asset, that is our reputation, that could be safeguarded. And consistent ethical behavior in the long run builds credibility and opens door for opportunities. Now, what are the common ethical red flags? I mean, some of the red flags that I shared my experience with you, that is there, that is the ethical red flag. And we, needless to say, we need to work, we need to have that integrity within us to overcome those red flags. So, some of the common ethical red flags are pressure to manipulate financial results of a company because we are working in the finance domain, let's say, or when we are auditing someone's book. Now, the second is adjust numbers to meet the target. Suppose the MD or CEO has already told in the investor presentation that we'll be having a top line of, let's say, 1.2 billion or 1.5 billion USD. So, and now they are pressurizing us to, manipulate the books with that number so that they are able to meet the target that they have shared in the street. That could be there. Now there is unusual urgency to finalize report without proper review. So every time there is someone acts in an urgent manner that this reports need to be finalized now, that is a red flag where our ethics can be compromised. Now when management is overriding established controls, like it happened in Satyam's case, so that is one of the red flag. Whenever there is a conflict of interest, that is a red flag. When there is a personal relationship, whenever there is a personal relationship, let's say some of my known or someone from my blood relation is working in order to cash department of the company that I'm ordering, it is obvious that that could influence my professional judgment, and I needless to say I need to inform the manager or the audit lead that someone known of mine is working there so that professional judgment is not influenced. Then one of the red flags could be undisclosed financial interest in client business. That's why it's needed to disclose whether you are having some kind of financial interest in the company that you are auditing or going to audit. Now accepting gifts or favor that could impair objectivity, that is there. Lack of transparency or withholding critical information from auditors or regulators. So if we are asking for some data and the client is not providing us, that could be one of the red flags. Vague or incomplete disclosure in the financial statements, or resistance to provide supporting documents. That are the red flags, one of the common red flags. Uh, Further, there could be unusual transactions, let's say during the month end closing or year end closing, some large round dollar transaction without any business purpose, or manual general entries have been passed, which is affecting, let's say, sales or profit figures, right? Then there is frequent related party transaction, and needless to say, we need to be looking more actively into the related party transaction, because this is something where most of the ethical red flags have been noted, what I have seen during my past years. Now another is weak tone at the top. That could be one of the red flags. Over reliance on estimates, that could be one of the red flags. Now, how to respond to those red flags? So we don't need to, haste, or we need to hurry into making any kind of decision. Before making any kind of decision, pause and assess. We need to pause and assess before responding to anything. Then don't ignore any gut feeling. Sometimes we feel like there is something wrong, so we there is no need to, ignore that gut feeling. It doesn't harm if we deep dive into, let's say, a transaction that is, for that we have a gut feeling, let's say, that something is wrong, so that we could investigate further. If we don't find something, that's fine, but what if we are able to? Because always rely on your gut feeling, so don't ignore it. Document concerns. So I don't have that notebook with me, but uh, I have a notebook where I have imprinted, it didn't happen until it's documented. So that is there on my notebook. So, and that is very much important, that we need to document everything, every statement, every transaction that is said by the process owner. So document everything, so it ensures your independence, and your sampling, or everything that you do, so it is your basis for your judgment. So needless to say, everything should be documented. And if you face any kind of red flags or any kind of pushback, always escalate appropriately as per the matrix. So if there is any kind of, whistleblower complaints, you could complain it to the whistleblower or the ethics department, so that is there. And in case you don't know what to do, or what to do in any kind of situation, reach out to your, seniors or peers, or let's say a legal counsel, or consult professionals. Now coming to the last part of today's topic, that is smart problem solving technique. So when we say smart problem solving, so there is smart and then there is problem solving, and we'll be discussing smart problem solving technique today. So what problem solving actually is? So problem solving is the process of identifying a challenge, analyzing the root cause, and finding effective solutions to overcome it. So when we talk about problem solving, we are talking about fixing issues. But when we are talking about smart problem solving, we are talking about fixing issues, but also turning those obstacles into opportunities for, let's say, improvement and our growth. Now, key elements of problem solving. So the key elements for the problem solving is, first thing first, we need to identify the problem. We need to understand what the real issue is. We don't need to assume everything कि ऐसा हुआ होगा. Always act basis the facts, not on the assumptions. For instance, अगर there's a client who says कि high cost है, पर क्यों है वो high cost? So it could be, the real issue could be that inefficient process, repetitive processes हो रहे हैं. So I remember I was there for on a consulting engagement, and we were doing the production audit. So, and there's a concept that we studied in our SCMP, right? SCMP book. तो उसमें क्या, वो जो फैक्ट्री का लेआउट था, उसमें हो ऐसा रहा था कि देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ अननेसेसरी मूवमेंट. सो अगर वहां पे कटिंग हो रही है, देन पॉलिशिंग के लिए वो वहां जा रहा है, फिर उसकी जो असेंबली हो रही है वो यहाँ आ रहा है. सो इट शुड हैव बीन इन अ सेमी सर्कल, कि अगर वहां कटिंग हो रही है तो यहाँ पे पॉलिशिंग होगी, देन देयर विल बी असेंबली, फिर यहाँ पर उसके प्रेशर टेस्ट होगा. एंड so this is how you link what you have studied with the practical application. So always garner facts, always gather facts, क्योंकि until and unless you gather facts, मतलब आई कुड हैव अज्यूम्ड कि वहां पर अगर कटिंग हो रही है और पॉलिशिंग के लिए वहां जाना पड़ रहा है उसको, मतलब इट इज डिस्टेंट, so just because कि ऐसा ही होता होगा, if I could have assumed this thing, but just because I acted on facts, acted what I studied on and what I have seen across the industries, then we were able to provide him with some valuable insights and opportunities that that helped them save costs in millions. So that was there. Now second thing is analyze the root cause. Always ask why. So always understand the root cause without before acting for any kind of problems that you encounter. We need to know the root cause, and there should be a questioning mind of us. So so these two are the most relevant techniques, I would say, that we use in our day to day life, that we use in the internal audit, while performing the internal audit's root causing thing. So there is five whys. So five why is five times why. So until and unless we discover what is the actual root cause. And the second one is fishbone diagram. We'll be covering both of these root cause techniques separately in the coming slide. Always focus on causes, not symptoms. For instance, audit delays trace to poor document management. So if there is a delay in performing an audit or completing an audit, it, it necessarily doesn't mean that it is due to staff shortage. It could be before because of, let's say, अपने को PBC जो documents required documents थे for testing, there was a delay from the client to give us those documents. It could be there, or maybe in real that staff shortage was the problem. Anything could happen. Until and unless we trace, we won't be actually aware of the root cause. So starting with the 5 why techniques. So it is a very simple technique because we have to ask why at every stage. So 5 times why. We do it to drill down from the symptom of a problem to its root cause. So at the first why there is a symptom, and ultimately at the last why we are able to unearth in the root cause. And it's not necessary that we have to stop at fifth why. We could go beyond as well, but generally we get the root cause at fifth why. So the purpose of 5 why is to identify the underlying cause and not just to treat the symptom. It was originally developed by Sakichi Toyoda and he was working in Toyota production system, and that's when he came up with this technique of 5 why. So how it works, we have a problem statement, then we ask ourselves why this happened. We ask from the process owners. Let's say if I'm talking about an internal audit observation, I could ask from the process owner why it happened. And if we are doing our feedback, so we'll ask if anything goes wrong, why it happened. We get an answer. Then we ask why it happened again, and repeat until and unless you reach the correct root cause. And usually after 5 iterations, we are able to get the correct root cause. Now, benefit of this 5 why technique. First, it is simple and cost effective. It encourages critical thinking because you put your brains at work that why it actually happened. And third, and the ultimate, that is, it prevents recurrence by addressing the real issue. So if we are taking as the root cause the first why, we are not addressing the real issue. Maybe if we have asked him more whys, we would be able to come up with the real issue. So we'll get to know about it in the next example. So for example, let's take an example that there was an delay in performing an audit. So due to which the audit report which was submitted to the client, it was delayed by 10 days. So in the first why, we are asking why the audit report was delayed. So the audit, when we asked this question to our auditee, they said because we received the client data late. So that is first why. Second is, why did the client send the data late? Because their finance team was busy with the year end closing. That's an obvious answer. That is second why. The third why was कि why the finance team was overloaded during year end. मतलब ये हर organization का है that finance team is overloaded during year end. So we got to know because they had to manually reconcile multiple accounts. Even in the ERP laden environment, they are reconciling manually most of the accounts. So most of the reconciliations were performed manually. Now, fourth why were reconciliations manual when there is an ERP? I mean, apart from 5 or 10 manual journal entries, why they need to perform manually reconciliations manually? So we come up with, because the company hasn't implemented an automatic reconciliation system, or they were not using that ERP to its full fledged. Now, fifth why hasn't automation been implemented? So because management didn't allocate budget for technology upgrade. So that was the real root cause for the audit delay. And this is how we use 5Y in internal audits, and this is how we can use 5Y in our day-to-day lives as well. And the real root cause that we came to know because of this 5Y technique was, first one, the root cause was lack of investment in automation. And what was the solution that we proposed? We proposed automation tools, invest in automation tools, and budget for approval to prevent future delays. Now, coming to the second technique, that is the fishbone technique. So, how fishbone technique works? So, this is how it is there. So, imagine again we'll take the example of audit delay. So, the head of the fish is our root causing. So, audit report delay, that is our objective that we have to find. Then you can see the bones are usually from 6 areas, that is people, process, technology, data, and environment. So these are the usual areas from where uh, in the fishbone technique. And then there are sub bones. So let's say in people there could be lack of staff training, high turnover. In process it could be manual reconciliation steps, non-standardized technique. In technology it could be outdated audit software, or no automation for data extraction. In data it could be incomplete client documentation, errors in trial balance because they have to perform that reconciliation manually. So when we analyze the root causing via the fishbone technique, we do a lot of brainstorming on every possibility that could have led to the delay in the audit, for instance in our example. And again, from the fishbone analysis, we come to know that the root cause was manual process and outdated technology. And again, the solution that we recommended was implement automation tools and train staff. Now, like we mentioned in the example, the head of the fish represents the problem or effect that we are talking about. The bones or main branches represents major categories of causes that are limited to those 5 that we talked about. There could be more, but most of the time that are the 5 techniques. And then their smaller bones represents the sub causes. Now, key elements of problem solving is, first thing is generate solutions. And how do we generate solution? It is via brainstorming on multiple ideas, and it also encourages creative thinking. So in our case, let's say instead of hiring more staff, he could have gone with the automate reconciliation because we did the brainstorming, right? Evaluate and select the best option out of, let's say, consider feasibility, cost, and impact. Then there is implement and monitor. Once we put all the recommendations in place, we need to implement those recommendations and monitor their progress as well. Now, critical thinking skill framework. First one is separate facts from assumptions. Always ask why. So identify what is objective versus what is informed or presumed. Don't presume anything. Always ask why. For instance, what evidence supports this claim? Second is use evidence based decision. So base conclusion on verifiable data and not management opinions or assertions. Always validate sources and ensure reliability before acting. Next thing is always question abnormalities. Investigate anything doesn't seem fit the pattern. So there could be odd one out. So let's say if there is, I'll take a classic example. If the sales are dipping but the costs are increasing, why? That's an obvious thing that doesn't fit the pattern, right? If sales is dipping, cost should also dip. But why is it increasing? Right? Always challenge the biases. So, and always, needless to say, think for a risk perspective. So evaluate potential impact, likelihood of outcomes, and consider worst case scenarios and mitigation strategies, because that is how we are able to develop this critical thinking skill framework. Now, if we combine all of what we talked about in the previous slides, so success is not just about skills, it is about mindset and discipline. And this is what gives a professional edge to us. So, always be disciplined in your actions, because, when we say always walk the talk, so if what you are saying is something else, what you are doing is something else, it doesn't build trust and reliability. So, in order to build the trust and in order to command that respect or becoming reliable to someone, always uh, bring discipline in your actions, always walk your talk. So this is how you build trust and reliability. Be ethical in every decision. Integrity is non-negotiable. So everything that we do should be supported by our ethics, the ethics as guided by the ICI, your own ethics as well. And integrity should be something that should be non-negotiable, come what may be. Always be solution oriented. So I mean, this is something, when you are solution oriented, this is something that puts you apart, that sets you apart from other peers. And this is something that gives you a professional edge, because people often thinks of, challenges as some kind of blockades. But many a times challenges are some kind of opportunities in disguise, because if you are able to pull it off, if you are able to charter in uncharted territories, suppose you worked on something that no one was able to do or no one was coming forward to do it, then you make a name for yourself, that you are solution oriented, that if I need any person who is able to do anything, let's say related to this one, or maybe to pull something off within the set timeline in a timely fashion, then this is my go to person. This is how you build your name. Always remember that your mindset is a biggest differentiator. It shapes how you respond, adapt, and grow. So, I remember watching a podcast where a person asked a question that whenever you hire a new player or you sign up a new player, what do you see? Whether it's his attitude or the knowledge or the skills that he possesses. And that was something that I resonates with. He said that attitude is something that is non-negotiable. I mean, come on, skills is something that we can teach someone, right? Until and unless that is something that someone is born with, which is very rare. So skill is something that could be taught to anyone, right? I mean, we were not CAs. Let's say I was not CA 5 6 years back, but I studied and I became one. But what is something that could never be taught? That is the attitude that you born with, the attitude that you carry with yourself, your integrity and everything, the doer mentality, the doer attitude or conquering attitude. That is something that is not negotiable. And that that is something which acts as your biggest differentiator. So if we are comparing two individuals, one with the strong mindset, or the work on it attitude, or do it attitude, or can do, like Modi ji said, can do generation. So that is your biggest differentiator, because it shapes how you respond, adapt, and grow in any organization, whether in a company or in your practicing firm as well. And above all, consistency creates excellence. So there is a 1% rule, which is very talked about. So what happens in 1% rule is, we don't have to do uh, a re-engineering. So we need to do re-engineering overnight. All what we need to do is we need to improve, make ourselves 1% better, one day at a time. So every day our objective should be to make us or to become 1%, grow 1%, or improve ourselves 1%. And the competition should be with us, how I was one day before, how I am now, and what I'm going to be one day after. So that is 1% rule, the 1% growth rule, because the consistency is something that creates excellence, and small repeated efforts leads to extraordinary results. एक दिन में पता नहीं लग रहा है कि हमने कितना डेवलपमेंट किया, राइट? But over a period of time, so 1 year from now, if you are, making yourself 1% better every day, it would accumulate into a lot if you will see at the end of, let's say, FY26 or calendar year 26, right? And this is the best time to set this goal for us, for every one of us, because we are at the end of the year in December. So if someone wants to set a goal for themselves, I'll recommend and encourage all of the participants here to have this 1% growth mindset, 1% better every day, and stay committed, stay principled, and keep moving forward with the purpose, whatever purpose you have in your mind. Now, the platform is all yours to have question and answers if you have any.
We have to wait for the questions from the participant side because yet we have not received anyone.
Okay.
I think there are no questions from the participant end. So we can close. So you can give your closing remark, then we can wind up the session.
Right. So, if I want all of you to take something with you all today, that will be, needless to say, that 1% rule, the 1% rule to make yourself better every day. And this is the perfect time to work upon that. And in order to, gain a professional edge, so professional edge is not built on some isolated skills. So it emerges from the harmony of the three core elements that we talked about. So first one that we talked about was time discipline. Second one was ethical conduct, and third one was the smart problem solving. So we talked a lot about the smart problem solving techniques using the 5 whys and fishbone technique. There could be others as well, right? And why all of these matters, because as we know, time discipline is the foundation of reliability, because when you are able to pull it off anything within the set time limit, it makes you a reliable person. Now, coming to ethical conduct, it is the compass of integrity. So if you are working ethically, if you are doing your works ethically, that sets you as a person with integrity, right? It earns your name, it earns you trust and reputation from peers or clients. And the last one, that is the smart problem solving technique, that is the engine of progress. So, why we call it the engine of progress? Because it challenges us to adapt, analyze, innovate, and move out of our comfort zone. So, that's how they complement each other. So, time discipline plus ethics is timely actions executed with integrity, and it will prevent crisis and foster trust. Ethics and problem solving skill. So, ethical framework ensures solutions are fair, compliant, and socially responsible. And then, problem solving plus time discipline, it leads to innovative ideas, deliver on schedule, and it demonstrates your competence and reliability. So this synergy creates professional. So when we are talking about the professional edge, all these synergies create a professional who deliver on time without compromising values. So if you are delivering on time without compromising values, you become the go-to person. Second is we are able to solve problems creatively while maintaining our credibility, which in result earns us respect, trust, and long-term success.
Thank you so much, sir, for um, perfect summing up the session. So today our participants have taken a good takeaway from your session. So uh, it has been a great honor to be such a part of a wonderful webcast. The professional edge, time discipline, ethical conduct, and smart problem solving skill, organized by Professional Skill Enrichment Committee (ICI). So, on behalf of the Professional Skill Enrichment Committee (ICI), we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our speaker, CA Rakesh Singh, for his enlightening session, and a wild round of applause and thanks to the organizing committee, Professional Skill Enrichment Committee, and our today's speaker, C. Rakesh Singh sir, and all the other stakeholders who has made this webcast a memorable one. So finally, we would like to thank all of you present here helping us to make this webcast a grand success. Thank you one and all. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful evening.
Yes.